Our next guest is a 34-year police veteran who was at the vigil and has a radical plan to stop many police deaths. Legalize drugs. Here to explain is Major Neil Franklin, Executive Director of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Major Franklin, it's a pleasure. Welcome to Freedom Watch.
Judge, thanks for having me on.
So the war on drugs, 30 years in the making, $1 trillion in expenditures, thousands of deaths, hundreds of thousands incarcerated. Drugs are cheaper and more prevalent than they were 30 years ago. Is it a success or a failure?
It's a complete failure, Judge. Just like back in the 1920s with alcohol prohibition, we're losing cops, we're losing kids to this. Prohibition didn't work back then. It's not working today, Judge. Not even close.
Major, do many police share your views, but they're doing their duty, which is to follow the instructions of their commanders and civilian authorities who say you gotta lock people up who are using drugs only for their own personal use?
Well, Judge, the officers on the street, they're going to follow the orders that are given to them. They're true soldiers. They're going to enforce the laws that are placed in front of them. And, this past Friday, I was down in Washington, D.C. at the police memorial with literally thousands of police officers and their families. They're real soldiers, so they're going to follow the orders that are given to them. And I was down there honoring a very good, close friend of mine who was assassinated 10 years ago. And there's something that really disturbs me. The Attorney General was there, and he was interviewed briefly by Adam Kokesh from RT America. And he was asked the question, would eliminating the war on drugs lower police officer deaths? And the response was no. That's very disturbing to me because I know personally 5 officers, including my friend, who have lost their lives in this senseless war on drugs.
Well, if drugs were lawful, if people could put whatever they wanted into their own bodies in the privacy of their home, it follows that the police would be free to enforce crimes that are not victimless crimes. And there wouldn't be drug gangs, and there wouldn't be territorial areas of cities, and they wouldn't have to use firepower to keep other drug dealers out, and there would be a lot less violence. Perhaps you know that, and the other cops in the streets know it, but the Attorney General doesn't.
Absolutely. I mean, Anheuser-Busch and Coors, they're not having running gun battles and drive-by shootings in our streets because it's an illegal market. Those are illegal drugs. Now, I know people are concerned about drug use going up, but when you look at countries like Portugal over the past 10 years, where they've decriminalized possession for personal use of all drugs, drug use is going down.
Wow. Tell us about your organization. You're the head of an organization, I think, of retired cops. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if active duty cops are allowed to join this organization. But basically, you go around the country sharing your experiences as a police officer with members of the public and with people in government, trying to explain to them how much better life would be if we left people alone to consume what they want in the privacy of their own home.
Absolutely. Our organization, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, was formed in 2002 by 5 police officers who have spent their careers on the front lines of the war on drugs, and they realized after a few decades it wasn't working. We now represent over 50,000 people worldwide. We're an international organization. And to answer your question, we're all not retired. I was an active major with the Maryland Transit Police Department for at least 2 years before I finally resigned to take over as executive director. But most are retired, and there's a reason for that. They feel freer to speak about this topic. It's a very sensitive topic to many people, and this gives them the freedom. Being retired gives them the freedom. But we have branches, we have one in Brazil, we have a branch in Canada. We're going very good.
We only have a few seconds left, Major. Are you making any progress with the people who make decisions, like Eric Holder, who could basically say to the feds, in those states where where medical marijuana is lawful, leave them alone? Or are you not making any progress with people like that?
Well, we are making progress. Most of our policymakers clearly understand that we have to end prohibition. But they're waiting for the people to move them.
Understood. Understood. Major Franklin, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.